Okay, Ji. We are starting off with angle properties of quadrilaterals. This is continuation of the lecture 1 of angle properties of triangles and angle properties that we have already done for two parallel lines and the transversal line. So let's start. Number 1. Now remember this, that the names of the following quadrilateral and the angle properties should be familiar with, you guys should be familiar with. So the first one is square. The first one is square. So what does square do? Number 1, two pairs of parallel line. Two pair of parallel line. Number 2, four equal sides. Number 3, four equal angles. And each angle is basically equal to 90 degree. Then we have diagonal. Diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other and are equal. Now, perpendicular bisector means that it is crossing the midpoint. It is crossing the midpoint and it creates the 90 degree. So let's just make sure that we know. Let's say that we have a square. Now, what does that mean? That the first thing is two parallel line pairs. So that means this line is parallel to this line, whereas these two lines are parallel. So you have two parallel pairs in this. Then the second says four equal sides. Four equal sides. This side, this. Now these all are equal in length. These all are equal in length. Then four equal angles equal to 90 degree, which means each side creates 90 degree. Each side creates what? 90 degree. And finally, it says that perpendicular bisector, that means diagonals, are basically what? If we just create diagonals, so it will create what? 90 degree. Now, we have two diagonals in this. If these two diagonals are there, so what does these two diagonals will do? It will create what? 90 degree. It will create 90 degree in. So all the point, that means point of angle should be 360 degree, but each side would be 90 degree. Plus these lines should be equal as well. These all lines are equal in length. Plus the point that you will have is the midpoint of the diagonal. The point in the middle is basically the midpoint of the diagonal because it is perpendicular bisector, and perpendicular bisector goes from the midpoint. Now moving to the second shape, rectangle. Rectangle. Now let's say Number one, two pairs of parallel sides. Two pairs of parallel sides. Number two pair of equal sides. Two pairs of equal sides. Number three, four equal angles, 90°. Four equal angles that are 90°. Then diagonals are only bisectors of each other and are equal. Now, which means it is not the perpendicular bisector. It is not the perpendicular bisector. It is perpendicular. It is perpendicular. Now, confirming this, you need to understand that let's say we have this becomes your rectangle. Now, rectangle says two parallel pairs of parallel line. Two pairs of parallel line. What does this mean? These two lines are parallel and these two lines are parallel to each other. Then the question says two pair of equal sides. This is equal to this, whereas this is equal to this. Similarly, four equal angles. This is 90°, this is 90°, this is 90°, this is 90°. Then lastly, the question says it is what? Perpendicular. So this is directly, they are only bisector, they are not perpendicular. That means they are intersecting, but it is not creating what? 90°. It is not creating what? 90°. Perpendicular means that they are creating 90°. Whenever the question says perpendicular, that means it is creating what? And when the question says bisector, that clearly identifies that bisector is what? Intersection between the two lines. Like in square, it was what? Crossing the midpoint, and it was also being perpendicular. That means it was creating 90°. But in rectangle, it will not create what? 90°, but they are bisector. That means they are crossing each other, but they are not the bisector, they are not the perpendicular in it. They are crossing, they are the bisector, but not the perpendicular. So that means the angle will be different. You can always have opposite angles that are equal here. That means you can always say this angle is equal to this angle is equal to this angle. But obviously you will have angles that are different. So the third quadrilateral is rhombus. So rhombus has two pairs of parallel sides. Number two, four equal sides. So we always say rhombus basically is the family member of square. Then we have is two pairs of equal angles, opposite angles are equal. Diagonals are equal, but perpendicular bisector of each other. Then we can also say that diagonals bisect angles as well. And lastly, the sum of interior angle between two parallel lines will be equal to 180 degree. Now these are all the properties of rhombus. Okay, so let's say we have rhombus. The first thing first, two pairs of parallel line. These two lines are parallel, whereas these two lines are parallel to each other. The second thing, four equal sides. That means all the sides are equal in length. All the sides are equal in length. The third thing, two pair of equal angles. Two pair opposite angles are equal. So that means the angles that you see, if we say that this is A, so this angle should be A as well. If this angle is B, this should be B2. Because the opposite angles are equal. The opposite angles are equal. Then diagonals are equal. Then this is diagonals are equal but perpendicular bisector of each other. So considering this, let's say these two diagonals creating, since this is 90 degree, this is what equal sides are there, so it would be what 90 degree in between, perpendicular bisector, it would be 90 degree in between. Then diagonal bisect the angle as well. That means if this is B, this should be half B, and this should be half B as well. That means B is divided into two equal parts. If this is A, this should be half A, this should be half A. Same as half B, half B. This should be half A and half A. The sum of the angle between the two parallel lines will be equal to 180. Now, what do we mean about the sum? That clearly means that the angle between the two parallel lines, as this is your parallel line and this is your parallel line, A and B, that means this angle and this angle should make up sum of what 180. Similarly, this angle and this angle should make up sum of what? 180, because it creates what? Sum of interior angle. So we can always write this thing as A plus B should be equal to what? 180 degree, because of what? Your sum of interior angle or co-interior angle. So the fourth quadrilateral property that we are doing is of parallelogram. Now, point number 1. Again, two pairs of parallel sides. Then we have two pairs of equal sides. Then we have is two pairs of equal angles opposite to each other. Then we have is sum of interior angle equal to 180 degree. Diagonals are only bisectors of each other, and are equal. So, considering parallelogram, now let's take this as obviously parallelogram. So, the first says two pair of parallel lines. These two are equal, whereas these two lines are, parallel to each other. Now, obviously, these two lines are equal and these two lines are equal as well, as point 2 says, two pairs of equal line. Then, two pair of equal angle opposite to each other. So, if this is A, this angle should be A. If this is B, this angle is B. Remember, the quadrilateral makes up the total angle of 360. Now, the sum of interior angle is equal to what? 180. And the sum of interior angle involves the two angles with the parallel line. So that means they are talking about A and B. So if the angle between the two parallel lines are same, so which means we can always write down that A plus B should be equal to 180 degree sum of parallel or sum of interior angle. And finally, the diagonals are bisectors. That means if we have a straight line, considering if we have straight line, so as I said, the diagonals only bisect each other and are equal. So that means if I create a line that is diagonal, and there is another line that is diagonal. So it will only bisect. It does not create 90-degree. But these two lines are equal. That means the bisector lines are equal from the point to point. So the fifth one is kite. Let's say that it has no parallel line, no parallel sides. Then two pairs of equal adjacent sides. Then we have is angle between two different sides are equal. Angle between two different sides are equal. Then we have is the diagonals are different in length. Diagonals are different in length. Then we have the longer diagonal is also an angular bisector. I mean, it bisects. Similarly, the longer diagonal is perpendicular bisector of shorter diagonal. So it has 6 points for kite. Now let's draw kite. So now in this particular kite, you need to understand that no parallel sides are there. So obviously all the sides are moving in different direction. So they are not in the same sides or same direction. The second says two pair of equal adjacent sides. That means this side is equal to this side, whereas this side is equal to this side. Two pair of equal adjacent sides. These are together, these are together. The third says angle between the two different sides are equal. That means angle between the two different sides are equal. That means if this is A, so this will be also A. Angle between the two sides will be, so if this is considering as, so this particular two angles will be of same side. That means A and A. Now, the question clearly says that whenever we have diagonals are different in length. Now, what are diagonals? Now, if we say these two are the diagonals, a straight line created from point to point and a straight line created from point to point. These are of different length. Then the point is the longer diagonal is also an angular bisector. That means obviously it is creating angle bisector, dividing all the angles, dividing all the angles. These two angles will remain same, that is A and A, but these two particular angles will be dividing. Even the diagonal between this line A and A can also divide the particular angle. Then the longer diagonal is bisector, perpendicular bisector of the shorter. So that means when the perpendicular bisector means that this will also be creating 90 degree. It will be creating what? 90 degrees. So no parallel line, two adjacent sides are same. The two opposite angles from the two different lines will be same. There is angular bisector between the diagonals. And lastly, what we have is the perpendicular bisector. It will be creating 90 degree between the two diagonals when they meet inside the kite. So this was the fifth quadrilateral property. Remember, quadrilateral is of four sides, and it total angle of the quadrilateral is equal to 360. The sixth quadrilateral property that we are doing is of trapezium. Trapezium is a four-sided figure as well. Only one pair of parallel sides. The sum of the interior angle, the sum of the interior angle at the end of each non-parallel side is 180 degree. That is, A plus B should be equal to what? 180 degree, and C plus D should be equal to what? 180 degree. Now, creating this trapezium, we should be knowing that if we have line goes up like this, and there is a straight line that means to create trapezium. The question says only one pair. That means these two lines are parallel. Similarly, if this is A, B, C, and D, because of the parallel line, the sum of the interior angle should be equal to what? 180 degree. So, as I said, as it is written that A plus D should be equal to 180, A plus B should be equal to what? 180 degree. C plus D should be equal to what? 180 degree, because these are between the parallel line, and there is only one pair of parallel line. This is parallel to this line. So that means the two angles should make up sum of what? 180 degree. Will make sum of 180 degree.